Hello, everyone. Welcome to night 33 of the Orphan's Tales Live quarantined reading series. Boy, we all thought this was not gonna last this long. And yet it is. It just keeps going on. So yeah, here we are, 33 nights in. Actually, like 36, because there were 3 or 4 nights I had to take off. But it's a lot. Continues to be a lot. Hello. And I don't know. There's all kinds of rumors our state is going to end up opening up early, which would be a disaster. But tourism, because what we really need are people coming in from like everywhere else. That is excellent. And somebody was quoted in the newspaper today saying that quarantining once you get here just feels unwelcome. Aw, sorry. Sorry that all the rest of us not wanting to die makes us feel unwelcome. But so that's our situation. I don't know if it's actually gonna happen or not. But here we are together tonight. New lipstick. Said I'd start changing it up for you guys. So this is Smashbox Cognac. I actually mostly wear like lipstick that stays on now. So this is like me digging in the drawer of my old Gets Everywhere lipstick because the matte lipstick technology has taken over my makeup buying. Who has the time? So that's what this one is. Let's do our intro business for legal reasons, as always. This is not an audiobook of The Orphan's Tales. This is a play, a one-woman show. You can find music based on these books at sjtucker.com, along with lots of other good music. You can get copies of these books at any bookseller, but particularly please support your local independent booksellers who are really struggling to keep their metaphorical and literal doors open. My local bookstore is printbookstore.com. You can catch up with the archive at Cat Valenti Live, which is my YouTube channel. And if you subscribe to it, then you will get a notification when the archive updates. And like, if you subscribe to it, then I get to do more things. YouTube's features are all locked down to subscriber number, which is terrible. But I can't even like do this directly to YouTube on my phone because I don't have enough subscribers. Charming. Anyway, you can leave a tip in the tip jar on my Instagram profile, on my website at catherinevalenti.com, or on my YouTube profile. These are absolutely free. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to watch them. But if you are so moved, it is a lot of work to put them together, and it would be deeply, deeply appreciated by our household, who are feeling the crunch as all freelancers are. Thank you so much to Sebastian and Gemma, who tipped me last night, and all the people who sent me birthday gifts. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. You guys are just amazing. It's such an amazing community that has formed up around these things, these silly little readings. Quite good for such an old book, but quite good for such a lovely group of people. And thank you so much. I will thank anybody by name in the next stream who does put a coin in the hat. And you can ask questions after the stream is over, but I do tend to not want to fill it with dead air, so if nobody asks a question for a brief period of time, it tends to end the stream. So if you have questions, just think about them while I'm reading. Don't ask them while I'm reading, because though I do look up at the camera, I can't necessarily read out loud and read to myself at the same time. I'm good, but I'm not that good. And I think that is it. So let's get started with more Tale of the Griffin and the King. The Tale of the Griffin and the King continued. I walked alongside Khayyam, who had grown slower in his halting gait as he told his story. I'm sorry my people have made this more difficult for you. It is true we hunted the griffin and took more than our share. We are ashamed of this. But you still hunt the poor beast. How can you take your share of something that is not yours? You do not understand. You are not of the Oculos. Our mistake was not in hunting the griffin, but unbalancing the war between us. The griffin's gold is ours. We are blessed by the fourth blink of the world eye. It is ours by right and strength of arms. But we should have been satisfied with the world as it was, and not sought more gold than we needed. Without the ocular, we are nothing. It is the golden eye that makes us Arimaspians. How can we be denied that which we are? How dare any griffin deny it to us, even to the last of their kind? Khayyam scratched his grimy hair. What exactly does it do? When forged according to the ritual of Ob and pressed into the skull of the king, it grants him the strength of 10 men and a lifespan 3 times his natural length. The ocular can see far beyond our kingdom, into cities and wild lands on the other side of the world. It allows him to guide his people, to influence them, and give his vision to the tribe. He sees far beyond the space of one tribe, far beyond the life of one man, for his own life sees the death 3 times over of all that he loves. The ocular draws the stare of the world eye and ensures the survival of our nation. Without it, the eye would slide from us, and we would perish from the face of the earth. My voice shook with passion. These are the deepest faiths of my father's fathers. And with all that perspective, no king of yours could see that the line of griffins would one day end, and there would be no more gold for your ocular. I shrugged. The eye will provide. They ate our herds by the hundreds and thought nothing of it. Why should we be counted as less than they? Khayyam shook his head. Like most outsiders, he could not accept the superiority of our claim, or the obvious need for the griffin to submit to us. I was a little disappointed. After all, I understood his need to put his woman to rest perfectly. I had hoped simply to ask for the gift of a talon, but after such losses, surely Jin will not part with one. It will have to be stolen. I put a comforting arm around my compatriot. One must always steal from a griffin. They cannot be reasoned with. You would not try to beg a gift from a wild hog. A griffin is no different. We walked in silence for some time, and the red silhouette of Nuru grew before us like a living flame. It had begun to prick at my eye, to scratch at my lashes and pull tears from behind my lid. I rubbed at it, trying to clear my sight, and knuckled away the tears as they swelled up. I could see that Khayyam was also weeping, only a little at first, but more and more until tears streamed down his face and mine in salt rivers. We could not look at the jagged peaks, or the sunlight filtering through them in thick red-violet shafts. I fell to my knees. Khayyam crumpled and lay on his side, breathing shallowly, unable to raise his head toward the glowering mountain. "It is like a riddle," he gasped, his hairy toes twitching. "How do a man with one leg and a man with one eye climb a mountain without looking at it?" My chest was tight as a skin stretched over the barrel of a drum. I loosened the leather straps of my breastplate and trying to catch my breath as my eyes clouded with tears. As I pulled it away from my body, I glimpsed the mountain reflected in its polished surface and found that I could look at the image in the metal without pain. I turned to the monopod and smiled. "The breastplate, Khayyam. The breastplate will guide us. I will carry you on my shoulders, and your foot, your colossal, beautiful foot, will block the side of the ruby slopes from us both. Hold the plate before you like a mirror and direct my steps. It will be slow, but we will reach the griffin's eyrie." And in this way, an ungainly beast ascended the heights of Nuru. Khayyam's gnarled trunk was not so heavy as it first seemed, and his great knee pressed only a little into my now bare chest. The scarlet facets rose up around us, but I saw none of it. Only the fleshy surface of his foot, covered with hair like moss on the ancient root of a tree. I studied the patterns of his yellow toenails. I counted the pores in his heat-cracked skin. Only the monopod glimpsed the beauty of those crags. Only he saw what no man yet has seen without paying the price of his eyes. I still envy him that sight. After a full day and night of climbing, Khayyam called out to me that the peaks were no longer blindingly red, but had darkened to violet and gave off no light to harm us, but rather seemed to pull the light out of the sky, the spires below, the breastplate into itself, and extinguish it. We could look at it so long as we did not look down into the inferno of stones below and not be hurt. I set him down and we clambered up the last few boulders, strange and alien stones, pocked like purple moons. No plant grew. The mountain at this height was a great dead thing, scarred and pitted, and the sharp rim of the windswept crater loomed up ahead of us. Perched just below the blasted crater, so precariously it seemed ready to tumble from its niche at any moment, was the nest of the griffin. I was surprised. The nest did not shine or sparkle as I would expect gold thatch to sparkle. It was dull yellow, mottled and dim, clearly gold, but dusted by feathers, its color dampened by the use of its owner. The griffin itself was, of course, predictably magnificent. His haunches took on all the burden of golden shades his nest had abandoned, his tail whipping back and forth behind him like a snake tufted with a little flame of orange fur. His plumage was a garish turquoise and green. And here we have another awesome illustration. With flashes of deep red underfeathers peeking out from beneath the sea-colored wings. His face was broad, his metallic beak half a mouth drawn back in a snarl. The wind roared around us, his voice vying for it with deafening power. Go away, Arimaspian, I have nothing for you. Your ape grandfathers have killed us and stolen from us and cracked our eggs on their knees. You think I will portion out my gold for you like a shopkeeper? I wish rotting diseases on all your children. I was prepared for abuse. Those who are not beloved of the world, I always harbor hatred for those who are. But the monopod looked panicked. It seemed to him, I imagined, that it was impossible to convince such an irrational creature to part with any piece of itself. Of course, that is true. I never had his silly intention of asking for what I needed. I drew my curved silver knife and advanced on the griffin, who reared on his hind legs and beat the savage wind with his blue wings. Jin, Jin, Khayyam cried, falling to his knee in desperate terror. Listen to me, and I will not let him hurt you. The griffin and I laughed at the same moment, both amused by the idea of the hapless monopod staying my hand or protecting such a beast in any way. Khayyam looked at me pleadingly. His chapped lips mouthed the single word, Tova. I lowered my knife, but did not sheath it. Who told you my name, One Leg? Griffins guard their names as their gold. It was told to me by the anchorite of Shadukian, noble Jin. I'm sure she meant no harm. She knows my need is great. The griffin folded his wings swiftly and leaned forward, his face suddenly soft and eager as a chick's. Giota sent you to me. I was forgotten. The two creatures were suddenly intent on each other and on the ghost of this third creature who was not on the mountain. I could have sunk my knife in the griffin's emerald flank then, and had my choice of his body or his nest to make my eye. I did not. I was merciful. I was, I admit, curious. Yes, she sent me. She said that you would help me. Please, I must have a talent of yours so that I may kill a thing and save my beloved. But the griffin was not listening. He beckoned Khayyam to him and allowed the monopod to awkwardly climb into his nest so that the excited, reedy voice of the bird beast, now soft with wonder, could be heard easily above the wind. I strained forward to hear, and Khayyam lay like a babe cradled in those iridescent wings. Little lumpish man, Giota brought my sister into this world. Tale of the Griffin and the Anchorite. She was the runt of our litter. The smallest egg, last laid, white barrel with stripes of cobalt and a cord of quartz streaking through the curve like a splash of milk. My mother feared it would not hatch at all, and she would be left with a dead rock to nurse. But she sat on it all the same, sharing the warmth of her hindquarters with 3 other eggs, all much grander and larger than the white one. They were her real hope, the violet, the flame-colored, and the deep blue. Of course, the Arimaspian horde came when the greedy Oluas needed another bushel of gold. They were delighted to find my mother had laid her eggs. The yolk of our agate eggs is the purest ore of all. Though she screamed and slashed at them with her forepaws, men dashed my siblings against the rocks and scooped up the precious stuff. The indigo griffin squeaked and died, half formed in a puddle of golden yolk, and the flame-bright brother I might have had did not even manage so much. His skull was cracked when the egg burst. Only I survived, who was laid first, for we are not birds. We give eggs one at a time during each moon of the mating autumn. I was large enough that I tumbled out a bundle of screeching feathers and fur streaked in ropey gold. But our Arimaspians have no use for live griffin chicks. Our beaks are too small to yield much metal. They made their escape, baskets brimming though a handful met my mother's claw. My sister's egg was so small they had not even noticed it. In her grief, my mother could not accept that all her children but one had perished, and with me clutched to her back, and the unhatched egg clasped in her talons, she flew from the heights of Nuru into Shadukian, where all manner of secret things are known. It is said that in Alinur, all the wisdom of heaven is kept, But if you seek the dank reeking magic of the underworld, if you want real power, it is to Shirukium you must go. My mother was wise. She went directly beneath the rose dome and ensconced herself on the roof of the basilica, among the waving branches of the door tree, where she sent up her morning cries like bells tolling the hours. So it went for a full fortnight, and the city could not sleep for the noise. Giotto was young then. She alone was brave enough to answer my mother's cry. She climbed the walls of the basilica like a little monkey, her short braids swinging. In those days she did not wear her gown of hair, but dressed as any of her kind would, and kept her locks cropped and knotted like a penitent. She crawled over the arched cupola painted with silver stars, and crouched before my mother, panting. Her face, of course, was smooth where her lips should have been, but she pulled open her tidy black vest to show her belly mouth and called out, "Mother Griffin, cease your cries. Giotto is here, and she will mend your egg." "How can you know that it is my egg which wounds me?" My mother beat her rose-gold wings impressively to instill proper fear in a flightless creature. I chirped beside her, eager to help. "Giotto knows much. She can hear your wails and would never mistake a mother's grief for any other kind. Give over the egg. I will quicken it." My mother was desperate. She knew no other would come clambering up the cathedral walls. "These are the last, little Giotto. My bright blue sun and this stunted white egg. The last griffins in all the world. The one-eyes have slaughtered all the rest, and the next time one of their princes itches for an eye, they will slaughter me. Save my egg, and you will have gold, more than you could ever wish for." Giotto shook her head ruefully. "That is the other Shirukium, the one which does nothing if it does not bring them jewels and silver. I will do this because I wish to. If reward comes to me, it will come in its own time and in its own way. Giotto does not bargain for lives. Only pray that the egg contains a hen." My mother held out her massive paw and relinquished the snowy egg into the hands of this strange-mouthed woman, whose blank face showed nothing. She held it for a moment, as if measuring the heft of the barrel, and then, without warning, she opened the mouth of her belly and swallowed my sister whole. Mother and I howled together in rage and betrayal. We lunged at the little woman, blue cub and crimson dam. But Giotto held up her hands, her eyes flashing warnings no mouth could utter. Her voice was choked by the egg. It took all her strength to speak around it. "Giotto has not hurt the egg. How do you expect a woman to quicken an egg if not in her belly? I will carry it until it is ready to hatch. Alone of all griffins, it will be born of woman, not of hen, not of lioness. See, already it has begun to grow. Ah, my jaw. Have no fear, Giotto is a good house for your baby." Indeed, her belly had swelled, and her mouth now stretched over a little paunch, a firm, moon-shaped bulge that increased in size even as we watched her in mixed horror and hope. She patted the bird swell with satisfaction. "Giotto is hungry. You must feed us until the egg is ready to crack." And so my mother swept down from the turrets of the basilica each day to hunt for her surrogate, bringing her strips of nameless meat and branches dripping with fruit. I worked the meat around the corners of the egg into her throat. I trickled water past the shell into her parched belly. She ate a horrifying amount of food. My mother could not keep her full. From dawn to eventide she ate and grew and ate again. After a single day she could no longer speak. After a week she could not walk. But while my mother combed the city for sweetmeats, Giotto and I played in the strange nursery of the many-towered, many-branched church roof. She tousled my fur and groomed my feathers. Leaning weakly against the spires, I picked flies from her hair with my beak. I was sorry she could not wrestle with me, but her belly made her tired, and I did not want to hurt the chick inside. A baby griffin is not small. I was already the size of a young horse, and before long the paunch of Giotto's stomach had grown so massive she could not move at all, and her mouth was pulled into a continual grimace by the growing flesh. She never cried out in pain, and she was always ready to stroke my tail. I was sorry she could not play any more, but I lay down and let her prop herself up against my flank where the feathers meet the fur, a thing which is almost never done between griffins and humans, even humans as inhuman as Giotto. But I did not know about propriety then. I only knew I loved Giotto, and inside her was my sister, and I wanted her to be comfortable. Finally, a day dawned when Giotto was so large that her belly dwarfed the rest of her body, as though she had become a snail and her shell was made of skin. She gave one long sigh, and the mouth crowning her monstrously stretched womb gaped open further than I could have thought possible. I admit I turned away from the sight. I was a child, and easily disgusted. But I peeked through my feathers and saw an enormous white egg emerge from Giotto, perfect and round, its color no longer sallow and opaque, but lustrous as a pearl, shot through with delicate blue veins of cobalt and amethyst. My mother crowed and nuzzled the egg tenderly, rubbing her body over it to give the gem her scent. She clucked and preened into light, and as she wrapped her long rose-colored wings round the egg, a deep cracking sound filled the wind-swept towers. The top of the orb split, much as Giotto's belly had split, and my sister Kuri emerged, pure white, blinking her deep black eyes at the sudden sun. She pecked her way out of her shell with an almost dainty fastidiousness, and my mother, seeing that she had produced a daughter and the race of griffins would survive, began to weep in relief, her golden tears dripping onto the dome of the basilica and mingling with the painted silver stars. My sister fluttered her pale wings and stumbled from the wreckage of her egg into mother's wings. I crooned and cleaned the last of the yolk from her feathers with my beak. We were a family, happy and whole. Into this new nest came Giotto, who extended her hand and gingerly stroked her adopted child's fur. We had, of course, forgotten her entirely in our bliss. She was whole as well, and showed no sign of the strange birth, save that her belly was worn and loose, like any woman who has just given birth. Her weary mouth smiled. Giotto has done well, she said roughly. Griffins will live and keep their gold. For a while, anyway. My mother turned to the little witch and enfolded her entirely in her wings, an embrace I never saw her grant again until the night she died, when she held my sister and me thus. When she pulled back, both mothers were weeping. It was much later that Giotto became the anchorite of Shadukium and wove a dress from her hair. My sister was with her the day Giotto forged her chain. She helped her fix it to the basilica wall. Since our mother was killed, as she knew she would be, by an Aramaspian prince, Giotto had always been the beloved friend of my sister and me, though she and Kuri have always been the closer pair. They share the womb bond. I cannot touch that. Born as all griffins but one are, from egg and never flesh. Alone of all flightless things, Giotto is loved by the griffin. We miss her, both of us. We miss her so. And we will pick up with the tale of the griffin and the king tomorrow. I saw someone mentioned that I forgot part of the intro thing, which is that you can follow me on Twitter at @CatValenti and subscribe to my Patreon. We hit a new Patreon goal. I haven't hit a Patreon goal in so long, I can't even remember. And it's amazing and crazy and just such a relief for us. Just so helpful. So I'm adding something, a big thing. Since the day I started, I haven't added anything new to the main sort of unit without any of the extras piled on top of the monthly reward, which right now is a recipe and an essay about writing craft, or the business of writing, or sometimes just how much the 2010s sucked. So now I'm gonna do a little review of something that I read or watched or played during the month, and it should be fun. I used to do this on my live journal, and then I sort of realized how many writers I know in person, and it wasn't fun anymore. So it'll be, I think, more fun probably to review games and movies and shows. But yeah, so that's happening on Patreon, so it's a great time to subscribe. I'll start that this month. There's all kinds of details up there now in a public post about how it's going to work. So yeah, I forgot that in the beginning. Does anybody have any questions while I drink my drink? It'd be exciting to know what games I like. I'm so used to watching Heath complain about games. I think I am less picky than Heath is about games. Heath is extremely picky about games. I'm picky about everything, and I am about games. But, like, we have very different tastes. Like, he can't stand platformers. I grew up playing platformers, so I will play Mario until my eyes bleed. Any Mario, really. And, you know, I think I have a lot more tolerance for repetitiveness and maybe not the greatest game design than Heath does. Heath is a perfectionist for sure. But we'll see. We'll see. And there's at the $20 tier, people get to make requests for what I play, so we'll see how much that comes in. I know there's a request for Sunless Sea already, but yeah, it should be fun. Should be fun. Gives a purpose to all that Animal Crossing I'm playing. It's a ridiculous amount of Animal Crossing. Yeah, anybody else? Do I time travel in Animal Crossing? I don't. I like, getting up every day and there being new things. I like the slower pace of the game. And, for my own sanity and like that my child should get care and that my book should get written, it's probably good that there is a point in the day where there's really not anything else to do. I think I am aware of what it is. I'm aware of how to do it. I am making a choice not to. So that, I can leave the game sometimes. Does this story feel different after having your own child? Man, there's a lot of childbirth in this for somebody who had never had a kid and at the time was absolutely child-free. When I was writing this, I was determined to never have children. So, man, there is just a lot of mothers and babies and wombs and the whole thing. Just like gut energy, big gut energy in this book. There are points where I'm like, I did all right with that. Like, I like that her belly's still loose, especially because I remember when I gave birth being like, oh, my belly is still big. And I thought it would just go away, and it totally doesn't. But I at least guessed that for this book. Yeah, it's so strange how much of that imagery is in there. I have not run across anything where I was like, oh, sweet summer child, you didn't know. But I genuinely kind of wonder what was going on in my head to include so much of it when like at the time I was taking myself out of that part of life and happy to do so. So very strange, young me. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I can't handle, and I haven't been able to since Sebastian was born, I can't handle bad things happening to kids, especially, like, mothers dealing with little boys being lost in fiction of any stripe. And so, like, I start to get tense even reading it in my own thing where I know what happens. Like I'm better about it than I was. Like I'm watching Dark right now and I'm able to sort of muscle through that even though it's pretty awful. But as far as like what happens to little boys in that thing. But like it's at first it was a big nope. And I read Nosferatu. I read it in Russia, so that was, Sebastian had been born and everything, and I got through the book okay, but I tried to watch the show, and I noped out of that in 10 minutes, just like, absolutely not, I cannot watch this happen, I cannot watch all these, I can't deal with it. I like just the idea, I'm a very empathetic person, most writers are, just the idea of like having my baby kidnapped or like any of that, I just cannot handle it in any way. I'm a total wimp, and I'm a horror fan, I'm a horror writer, and I just can't do it. I've been told that goes away eventually, but yeah. Do I like Dark? I love Dark. Dark is great. It's a really interesting show. There's a lot of white people to tell apart. It kind of threw me for a while because there are a lot of people in that show. They are all in family groups. A bunch of them have the same last name, and they're all just like Teutonic and sad. But it's a really good show. It's a little on the nose sometimes. I'm on to season 2 now, and which I sense is going to be kind of different. There were things I guessed right away in the first season. Like, well, okay, so that's this person, like, got it. And I kept kind of waiting for a twist that didn't really come. I feel like it's for people who really enjoy time travel narratives, the first season is really solid and really good, but doesn't necessarily offer that much innovation on the genre. Like, if you kind of know where it's headed. But the second season, I definitely have no idea where this is headed. It kind of seems like all of that sort of very genre tropey stuff was headed towards something where anything could happen at this point. But it is really good. The acting's really good. The English dub is a little but the acting's good. It's very atmospheric. The soundtrack's one of the best I've ever heard. The music is just so good. And it really sort of evokes a time and a place. It's kind of like Chernobyl meets Stranger Things. You know, you kind of know where Stranger Things is going a lot of the time, but getting there is still interesting. Yeah, so it's a really good show. I really like it. I'm interested to see where season 2 goes, and then season 3 is supposed to be out in June. But yeah, the soundtrack's amazing. Although they lean a little hard, not the music and the songs, but so there's a sound effect that Heath and I call Reaper farts. It is the science fiction sound effect. Like that sound effect that they play in all the trailers. War of the Worlds is the worst about this. They use it like every 3 seconds. It goes like, bah! Well, it's pretty much the same sound effect that they use for the Reapers showing up in Mass Effect, particularly in this one little screen where like you go to a galaxy and there might be Reapers there, and if the Reapers there, it'll pop out of nowhere and make this sound incredibly loudly and make you jump out of your skin. And so it's kind of like that, but with like a fartier bass. So we call it Reaper farts. This show leans on Reaper farts a lot as far as its sound effects, but at least like it will play that sound while showing you just like a door or something. So it's good. They could ease off of that sound effect a little bit. Have I checked out Ragnarok on Netflix, like Thor Ragnarok, or is there a different Ragnarok? I mean, I've seen Thor Ragnarok a couple times. It's a great movie, great soundtrack. But if there's a Ragnarok with a different soundtrack on Netflix, I will definitely check that out. Is there? Yeah, so I'm one episode into season 2 of Dark, and we'll see where it goes. It's also just really nice to see a like non-American slick science fiction show. It's very highly produced. Different Ragnarok, updated look at the Norse myth. I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, I have not seen it. Yeah, I mean, so I don't spend as much time on Netflix because the auto previews play and it annoys the shit out of me. And so I don't feel like I can browse the way I used to, or the way I can on literally any other service. But so I don't necessarily, I don't go on Netflix until I know what I'm going to watch, because then I don't have to hear a heightened volume trailer playing. Why do they do that? When I rewatched Spider-Verse, I was struck by the overwhelming nature volume of that sound effect. Yeah, it is such a loud sound effect. Not only is it a loud sound effect, but it gets used in so much science fiction. It is just the science fiction sound right now. I feel like it'll be so dated in 10 years. Like you'll be able to tell, it'll be like the synthesizer in 80s music or 80s movies. You'll be able to tell it was made in the 2010s or early 2020s by that sound effect. Did I have a good birthday? I did have a good birthday. That's Talon. So I don't want to embarrass Talon, but that's the girl that the Orphan's Tales is dedicated to, talking right here, asking me about my birthday. All grown up. She's almost the same age that I was when I wrote it. So hi. I did have a good birthday. I played video games all day, cuddled with my son, ate cake and stew, and went to bed super late after having drunk most of a bottle of champagne. So, you know, it's not too bad for a birthday. I'm looking forward to seeing my friends again when I get out. But yeah, birthday times. Today's that sort of post-birthday, like, oh, well, now I'm just 41. No, I'm not like birthday girl, just 41 minus the hat. I still have the hat. Hat's sitting right here because I didn't clean up after myself. But yeah, good birthday. The bars open, or at least that's the plan. The bars are opening 2 days before Heath's birthday, so hopefully we'll get to go out to a bar for Heath's birthday. That would be nice. But who can say? If I were going to have a party with my characters, which ones would I invite? Well, some of my favorite characters are not necessarily people you want to have over for a party. A through L, obviously, like party animal. Would love to have him over. Who else? Decibel Jones is life of the party. It's a character called Bonk the Cross in the book I'm writing right now. I think I would enjoy having him. See, I've written a lot of books, guys. I don't know. Out of the Orphan's Tales, Lantern would be nice, I suppose. He's a good sort, and doesn't, bleed freely like Beast. The tea and coffee folks from the second Fairyland book absolutely would bring this back. I always meant to do a periodic table of tea time, like complete, as opposed to the portion that's in the book. I never managed to do it, but I always meant to do it. But yeah, Elle and Des would totally have a great time together. It would be awkward at first. Like, Elle would be pretty horrified by the level of profanity that Des regularly employs, and Des would probably hit on Elle, who he would have no idea what to do about that. But it would be hilarious and awesome. Yeah. I mean, Severin from Radiance. She's a party girl. Severin and Des would be quite the pairing. But yeah, the girl from Radiance, Severin. I don't know. And then throw the Brontes in, I guess. They're not really my characters, but I did write a book about them, so kind of count. I don't know. I love all my babies, even my villains. So it's hard to pick, but I think that's probably about the party. There's a bit in the second Fairyland books paperback, which is me and Elle. I wrote this whole thing about me and Elle hanging out and me interviewing him it's Catherine Valenti and interviewing him. I was just supposed to write some extra thing for the paperback, and I ended up writing like this 3,500 word short story. But I really love it. It's a favorite piece of writing of mine. So if you can dig that paperback up, you can sort of read me having a party with Elle as it is. Well, let's do our outro stuff. You can pop up any more questions while I do it if you like. So I will start with, you can follow me on Twitter at Cat Valenti. You can subscribe to my Patreon at Cat Valenti, where there are a whole new reward scheme up because we hit a goal. You can find music based on this book at sjtucker.com. You can catch up with the archive, any nights you might have missed, at Cat Valenti Live on YouTube. And for legal reasons, as always, this is not an audiobook, this is a play. You can put a coin in the tip jar if you are so moved. You don't have to, but it is deeply appreciated, as being a freelancer right now is an exercise in ulcers. I will thank you in person on the next stream if you do. And I think that's everything. I always forget things because I'm not very good at this. I haven't lived on YouTube like so many people of my generation. This is the most time I've spent on camera like ever in my life. And it's going to be very strange when this stops, like, because I'm so used to talking to you guys every night and reading on camera and everything. I think that all of us have kind of figured out that you can do readings through live stream in a way that we probably intellectually knew before, but didn't really grok completely. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects all of our book publicity going forward. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you tuning as though there's a little dial. No longer dials, just everybody with their own television show. By the way, speaking of like things I consume that I like, if you want to read a really prophetic essay about everybody having their own television show, I highly recommend David Foster Wallace's essay, E Unibus Pluram. Which is 20,000 words long, so like it's a commitment, but it's really good, and it's unreal that he wrote it in 1992, not having any idea where television was going to go. It's all about television. There's no internet to speak, like he doesn't know anything about the internet, and yet somehow completely nails where we are in 2020 in a way that blows my mind continually every time I read it. I think about it literally all the time. When I watch television, when I watch reality television, he didn't even know about reality television, and yet he ends up talking about reality television without knowing that that's what he's talking about. And live streams and everything, I just think about it all the time. Highly recommend that essay. And with that recommendation, I will bid you good night. Sleep well, have as good an evening as possible, maybe pour yourself a glass of something nice, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Same fairy tale time, same fairy tale channel. Bye bye.